Hi, welcome to Beyond Toxics. My name is Crystal. I manage our pollinator projects here at Beyond Toxics and our social media. Some of our pollinator projects include raising awareness about native bees in our communities and how to protect them. And we also engage people on social media. We are Beyond Toxics on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter, and you can find us online at Beyond Toxics.
Hey, my name's Anna. I'm here with Beyond Toxics as the Environmental Justice Statewide Community Coordinator. And so I work throughout the state working with communities and different organizations and making sure that the environmental issues that are happening across the state in rural communities, communities of color, and low-income communities are being brought forth to our state level and that we can address them at the state level and implement policy to protect them.
Hello everyone, my name is Pablo Alvarez. I'm the Environmental Justice Coordinator here at Beyond Toxics. Part of my job comes from my fundamental belief that sometimes policymakers are the best at listening to what frontline communities need and what their needs in environmental justice are. So one of the things that I am planning at the moment is our big environmental justice summit that we will be having in October, where we hope to bring environmental justice leaders at the frontline communities, some scholars, and some policymakers to all come into one big meeting place to see what are the best paths forwards and the best policies that will best help people's lives. Thank you for being here today.
Hey there, I'm Lisa Arkin, Executive Director of Beyond Toxics. What's Beyond Toxics? We are a statewide environmental health and justice organization working to serve frontline communities who are bearing the brunt of environmental pollution, climate change, and devastating health impacts from exposure to toxic chemicals. We're working very hard to embed principles of justice, fairness, equity in our environmental policies so that we can have a clean, healthy environmental future for all communities and find ourselves free of really an addiction to toxic chemicals that are used in our everyday lives. We have another number of programs we're tackling here in Oregon, and of course we feel that whatever we accomplish in the state of Oregon can be replicated everywhere else. We work at local level, regional level, and very much at our state legislature to create the kind of policies that will make Oregon a leader in environmental health. For example, just in the past few months, we had a significant impact on the rules that are made by the Oregon, sorry.
That's fine. That's fine.
All right, I'll start that again. OSHA, Oregon Safety and Health. Okay. For example, in the past few years, we've worked very hard to improve the Golly! Hold on.
It's okay.
Does it bother that this is moving?
No, it actually looks good.
Okay.
People like just everyone's so addicted to like sensationalism that
Okay.
if it's too then.
In the past few years, we tackled the issue of pesticide exposure for the people who bring in the fruits and vegetables that we feed our families with every day. These are the people whose hard work feeds our family, and yet they are bearing the brunt of exposure to dangerous pesticides and very poor working and living conditions. So, under the Obama administration, there were certain rules passed to do better at protecting farm workers, although the rules themselves were still not enough. But here in Oregon, our Oregon Safety and Health Administration needed to adopt the federal rules and bring them into Oregon. And since we knew the rules were poor to start with, we were very focused on adopting the very most protective rules possible for our farm workers. However, we came up against great resistance from the big agriculture industry and the big chemical industries who not only didn't want to change anything, but wanted to be less protective than federal rules. And they are able to do that in some cases if they can claim an economic hardship, which is what they did. By working in frontline communities, by working with farm worker groups such as Bikun, our farm worker union, and Unite Farm Worker Advocacy Center, and the Northwest Forest Workers Center, we were able to gather hundreds of people together to testify at hearings, to submit their comments, and to be at the table negotiating on the actual laws that were to be implemented. And in the end, Oregon has the strongest worker protection standard in the nation. Again, I'm not hesitant to say we still couldn't get it to go far enough. We still are not doing all that's necessary to protect this vulnerable population. I'll give you an example. In Oregon, a pesticide applicator who sprays a pesticide and it drifts over and gets on some grapes or some wheat, they can be fined. They could possibly have their license taken away. But there's no mechanism to have that kind of accountability if the drift happened to go onto a family of farm workers who were having lunch near their labor housing. So our state does more to protect some grapes than it does to protect people. We also know that farm workers are vulnerable because their lifespan is 49 years compared to over 70 years for the average American. They have 25% greater incidence of miscarriages, and in their workforce, more than a third of the workforce is women and adolescents. So it was very important, for example, that we in Oregon adopted a law that prevents a farm owner from asking someone under the age of 18 to spray pesticides, because a youth, a child, their body is still developing, and they are the most susceptible to harm from exposure to neurotoxins, carcinogens, and chemicals that cause imbalances in our endocrine or our hormone system. So we had a great success there, but it took years of organizing and working very hard with our allies. We also worked extremely hard to improve our air quality rules. And I'm proud to say that Beyond Toxics introduced the idea that all polluters should be required to report their emissions on an annual basis by the pound and have that accessible to the public on a publicly available website run by a state agency. It's hard to believe that that had never been required, that someone could be polluting very dangerous chemicals into the air, hundreds of tons a year, and yet no one knew how much or what they were polluting. Because reporting on emissions is not the same thing as having an air quality permit issued to you. The two are not the same at all. One allows you to permit to a certain ceiling of pollution, but the other thing, a reporting emissions website tells you by the pound how much sulfur dioxide, by the pound how much naphthalene, by the pound how much formaldehyde. And that data empowers communities to protect themselves and their community well-being. So knowledge is power, and we're proud to say that because we pushed in both the legislature and through our grassroots organizing, all polluters in Oregon are now required to report to an online, publicly accessible database.
So a lot of these toxins obviously come through the form of herbicides and pesticides through the agricultural industry. And as I found out yesterday, there's also large aerial spraying campaigns over forest land. For the person who might be watching this at home, maybe they feel a little bit unaffected by that. How are some other ways that people, whether through recreation, lifestyle, are being exposed to these toxins, and what can they do?
It's possible to be exposed to toxic chemicals without your knowledge. I came across something that happened in my own life that spurred me to look into the use of pesticides in city parks and on other kinds of public lands that we recreate in, where someone could think they would take their children on a Saturday to play in the grass and not know that they might be putting their children in danger. I happened to be walking down a city street in Salem, Oregon, which is our capital, on my way to our Capitol building. And there's a beautiful mall with cherry trees, and it's just the place to be in the springtime because of the beautiful trees blossoming. And I was walking behind a mom who was pushing a stroller with a baby in it and was holding the hand of a toddler, walking and talking to her children. And she didn't notice it, but she walked directly into a cloud of spray from a pesticide applicator who was doing something with a wand sprayer right along the sidewalks. And she was right behind him talking and looking at her children, not knowing that they passed right through the mist from this spray. And I thought to myself, if the baby started to cough or vomit, or if the toddler had some kind of rash on his skin, she would never have a clue where they were exposed to something that actually harmed them. So we work very hard to make sure that when you go to a public park or your state park, or taking a walk on the beach, or even going to a municipal golf course, you're not inadvertently and unknowingly exposing yourself to chemicals. Here in our city of Eugene, we worked with our city officials to ban the use of neonicotinoid insecticides, and I'm just going to call them neonics for short. These are very biopersistent. That means they stay in the environment a long time, years. Biopersistent insecticides that are used on everything from apple trees to golf courses. The city had been using them all over the flower baskets in downtown along our main street. And so again, if you happen to be sitting during your lunch break having your bag lunch outside near a flower pot, you might just be inhaling something that had been sprayed 5 minutes ago. The city banned them on city property, and that affected our municipal golf course because they're heavily used on golf courses. At first, the golf course manager was not happy that he had to investigate alternatives, but once he committed to it, he found that not only could he manage his golf course without the use of these very invasive insecticides and herbicides, that when he implemented a regime of alternatives, he saved money, the health of his employees increased, people were more excited about coming to the golf course knowing that they were not going to come into contact with chemicals when they knelt on the ground to buy their ball and all of that. And he found that many of the problems that needed the pesticides were caused by a long history of fertilizer and pesticide use. These products create ecosystem imbalances. They lay down heavy metals in the soils which disrupt the relationship between the soil health and the grass. And they can get into the rainwater systems, which go right into our storm drains and right into, in our case, the Willamette River, which downstream of us provides the drinking water for the city of Corvallis. So what we do in our backyards, what we do on our golf courses, affects our neighbors downstream from us. We need to fix what's going on upstream in order to protect all the communities downstream. So now we created a documentary about the golf course, and it's been seen all over the world, and the manager of the golf course says he gets calls from Europe, South America, people wanting to know how he made that transition. And so his example is inspiring others to do something similar in their own community.
And for people, maybe they're homeowners, what can the basic family do to become more toxic free? And can you offer any solutions? Maybe they're using cleansers in the home or gardening products. What can people do to help enhance their quality of life and health in their own yard?
As a busy person and a homeowner, I know how tempting it is to reach for something that'll save us time and just, someone else will take care of the problem for us, whatever. So I'd say the first thing we need to do is just look around at what we're using in our home and say, I'm going to take an extra 3-4 minutes before I start cleaning with this product or whatever to make sure it's safe for my family, all the members of my family, and including pets, and look for alternatives. So here's a great example. I've seen members of my own family, a different generation, spraying Raid to kill ants right on counters where food is being prepared, thinking that since they were able to buy it at the local Safeway store or Albertson store, it must be safe, right? Someone in our government has made sure that this product is safe. Well, that is not the case. Our government does not guarantee safety for products, and we have to take it upon ourselves to be non-toxic. So I would say, when you're looking for a cleaner, buy one from a company that is guaranteeing that it does not use any toxic ingredients in their cleaning products. Not only can it impact you at the time, it can impact children with asthma, it can foul the air inside your home, which is not moving very fast anyway, so things that are sprayed or applied inside your home tend to infiltrate within the closed indoor air and stay there for a long time. Don't ever use pesticides inside your home unless it's a dire emergency. Like if you're having structural damage, yes, you might need to do something about that, and it might take an insecticide, but you have to research it first, and you have to talk to that company you hire about the least toxic alternatives and start there. A lot of it starts with exclusion, keeping bugs out of the house, making sure spaces under doors are sealed so that they're not coming in under doors or through windows or through cracks in the basement. Exclusion first, cleanliness second. If you're going to leave food out, then it's going to attract a pest. That's just the way it goes. That's worked in schools, making kids clean out their lockers and not leaving food over the weekend, and that helps really prevent a rodent problem. And we can do the same in our home. In the garden, there's no way around it. It takes a little elbow grease. But one of the healthiest things you can do for yourself is get out in your backyard. Breathe that soil, get your fingers in it, and appreciate the microcosm of life right in your own backyard. It gives me great joy, even though I don't have a lot of time to do it. And it connects you with your home and your place, and it gives you a sense of place to be out in your garden. I've been growing more edible foods in my own garden, and that saves me money at the grocery store, and then I feel a sense of accomplishment knowing I grew it without any herbicides or pesticides and tended it myself, and then it nourishes my body.
Well, thank you so
We
much.
could get into plastics and all sorts of things.
So many things, microplastics. Well, it's exciting. In California, they at least passed legislation recently so that restaurants cannot willingly give you a plastic straw with your drink. Now, if people request one, they'll still provide you with one, which is peculiar to me, but unfortunately it doesn't extend to the fast food industry.
What?
Yeah.
That's where straws are mostly used.
Yeah, it's a sad fact, but as you know, there's a lot of lobbying power that corporations have to affect decision making. But I know you're really busy, and I deeply want to thank you for your time that you commit to making a difference here in Oregon, and hopefully we can glean some of your success and some of your knowledge and apply it to some of the issues we're dealing with in Sacramento River watershed in Northern California. So again, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Michael. It's been great hanging out.
Great. And before we go, any last sentence, words of wisdom, or something you'd like to share with our audience?
I think my last thoughts are we all have to be united in our effort to have a systemic change in the way we allow toxic chemicals in our environment. It's because of corporate influence, it's very difficult for communities to take charge of their own community well-being, but that's what has to be done. And as much as we can do to support each other in that endeavor is important. So alliances and coalitions and communicating with our elected leaders what we want and the pathways to get there, and making sure that we're watching out for the most vulnerable among us. Thank you.